Now, a new survey conducted by the University of Johannesburg and the Human Sciences Research Council has found that 2 out of 3 parents don't want their children to return to school. Now, the survey is backed by Statistics South Africa and represents all demographic groups in South Africa. It is the second such survey conducted in as many months and shows a marked change in the response. In the first survey, parents were mostly concerned about their children's education, but this time around they say they prefer their children to stay at home, even at the expense of the academic year. Now, these new answers mirror the anxiety felt by parents and caregivers who are concerned, of course, about the rapid rise in new coronavirus cases. Let's unpack these findings now. We're joined via our Zoom link by Professor Narnia Bohler-Muller from the Human Sciences Research Council in Pretoria. Professor, thanks very much for your time this morning. And, I think that certainly not surprising, these findings and the differences in the survey compared to perhaps the beginning of the lockdown to where we are now. And what do you attribute this change in how parents and caregivers are feeling about the future of their children's schooling?
Yes, it is an interesting change, but so much has changed over the last few months. And I think what's changed the most is the number of cases per day. And in fact, yesterday we had the most deaths by far. So people are very concerned at the moment as a result of the rising numbers. And we're not sure how much further it's going to rise, how high the peak is going to be or how long it's going to last.
I think, Professor, as a parent, perhaps the most concerning thing, particularly for who have children in the lower grades, the foundational phase and the lower grades, is the issue around, are they able to, when adults can't do it, keep their masks on for upwards of 6 hours a day?
Well, there's a claim that this is possible, it's not a problem, but kids play and they love messing around with one another, eating one another's food. So I don't know if they're going to be monitored 24/7. And I think it's very unlikely that young children in particular really understand the situation. And it would be terrible to impose that level of fear on a child. So seeing children go to school with masks on and having to sanitize consistently is quite disturbing. I mean, life has changed, yes, things aren't normal, but it's placing a lot of pressure on children. There's been a lot of research around this as well, although it wasn't part of our research, that the mental health of children is very fragile. And so we don't need to put more pressure on them about school and achieving at the moment when they're also confused and afraid of what's going on.
And I think the natural response from parents and caregivers, if you do decide to send your children to school, is, to instill an element of fear in them. You're going to tell them you need to wash your hands all the time. Make sure you keep your mask on. Don't share your food. And that you'll feel is necessary for you as a parent to ensure their safety.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the schools are supposed to be equipped with PPE and ensuring sanitizing and all of that stuff. And I've actually seen videos of schools and all the rules that are applied, including putting bracelets on children and ticking off when their temperatures are taken or when they sanitize their hands. And this isn't a normal situation at all. And I think it would be very, very stressful for a child to go through that. So it's not only about the parent fearing that the child may carry the virus home and infect adults who are far more susceptible to the virus, but also just the mindset, the mental health of the child. And I think that we are not focusing on that enough.
Professor, it doesn't come as a surprise then that there are now these murmurings around the National Command Council taking a decision to close schools again for the next 3 weeks. I mean, Parliament still is holding virtual briefings. MPs are not going back to Parliament, and yet children are expected to go back to the classroom. Do you know anything about the kind of pressure, perhaps, that is on the Ministry of Education for schools to resume? Is there that kind of pressure that the minister is facing, perhaps from corporate South Africa?
Well, the minister addressed a parliamentary committee yesterday. Unfortunately, I didn't watch it, but I read the reports. And there were very many tough questions asked by parliamentarians about this. But the minister was insistent that she's spoken to stakeholders, and especially school governing bodies. And the majority of school governing bodies are in support of reopening schools. This is also surprising, and I haven't seen the figures, but she seems to be convinced that it would be better and safer for children to be at schools where they are not exposed to COVID-19 at home. The problem is that children that go to good schools, the wealthier children, and parents who send their kids to schools that are equipped are okay with this, and this is shown in the survey. But poorer parents are particularly worried because they know that the schools are not necessarily equipped, and a number of schools have closed as well. And I think that's why SADTU, the union, is also pushing for the schools to remain closed until things have been sorted out, such as a simple thing, sanitation and water. If there's no sanitation and water at schools, children really are at risk.
No, absolutely. Professor, thanks very much for your time this morning on the AM Report. Professor Narnia Bohler-Muller is from the Human Sciences Research Council. As we continue to track this discussion around the reopening of schools, many parents have decided not to send their kids back to school. We know that there are also now rumours that the National Command Council will make that decision to close schools for the next 3 weeks again. But that's a story we'll continue to track for you.